They do. Okay, I want to add one more person to this panel because I mean, and I want to keep everybody here, please, if you could. And I'm going to add religious reform activist Frank Schaefer. We're going to add you to. You've been listening to this discussion, Frank. And I mean, do you understand? Can you explain for those who don't understand why it is that people, even if they think something bad happened to this woman, would still want Kavanaugh on the court no matter what? Because a lot of people, I think that's what's bothering a lot of people. They don't understand why part of the base of the party is so determined to have this seat. You know, they held it open for almost a year to get this, to get all the seats, why?
Well, the fact of the matter is you have to go back a little bit and look at the history of this. My father, Francis Schaefer, in the 1970s and 80s, along with me as his nepotistic sidekick and people like Sierra Coop, started something called the evangelical wing of the pro-life movement with a film series called Whatever Happened to the Human Race. Fast forward to the present time, I can literally say this. I think the evangelical white voter in this country has become two things. First of all, been driven mad by the issue of abortion. It has become so much of an obsession with part of this group that they would do anything, including sanctifying a guy like Roy Moore, an alleged pedophile, now sanctifying an alleged attempted rapist. So that's point one. Point two, the evangelical group itself has moved so far to the right that it literally is more like a Trump cult now, that you would find something in North Korea or whatever supporting their leader, than a political movement in the American sense of the word. I don't think people understand that. And I just want to add as a little footnote that there are some former evangelicals like me, former in that we've been kicked out, as it were, not because we've lost faith in Jesus, but we have lost faith in the Republican Party, who have formed a group called Vote Common Good. And we're going on a bus tour to 35 cities, working with 35 Democratic candidates, trying to flip the Congress, not because we're even Republicans. We are trying to save this country from going any further down this path of this cult, this abortion-obsessed cult that will take anyone and even badmouth someone like Dr. Ford before even hearing her, who has been sexually assaulted, rather than vote for a Supreme Court justice who might not do everything in the litmus test the Republicans want. It just makes no sense unless you understand this Trump cult is no longer really an American political party in the classic sense we mean it. And that's the point I would like to make.
Well, and to that point, David, just when we were talking about it, you use the same word, right?
Yes.
There's something cultish about the sort of affinity. Right. But Republicans have an entire long list from the Federalist Society of people who would vote the exact same way on Roe, presumably, and say the magic word stare decisis and claim they won't, and then get on the court and do it, right? Sure. They could pick any one off of that. Why? But they're hanging on to this guy, and it feels like there's something more. There's abortion, but there's also the idea that this man may not be denigrated, that we must not allow him to be denigrated. Is that familiar to you, or am I off base there?
Sure, no, I think that's right. And I think that, you've seen in the polls, as you cited earlier, that he's the most unpopular nominee, I guess, in history. Yeah. But he's popular among the Republicans still. And so what you're going to see here is they want to stick with this, and they want to get it jammed through. But what's going to happen is, if they don't, it's going to depress their turnout. It's going to be demoralized because the Trump brand is winning. If he gets a black eye here, you'll see it'll depress their
Even if he withdrew him, or if this man withdrew and he put a different evangelical person who would overturn Roe on, wouldn't matter?
No, I think it won't matter. I think if a loss is a loss, and it will depress their base. You see stories about the evangelical right thinking about maybe sitting out the midterms if this doesn't go through. So they are very, very invested in this, and they do not want to see Democrats bring him down.
And do you feel that way, Sarah, that this is partly about not allowing Democrats to take this man down?
I mean, I do think that in some way, but, we've got to admit objectively, with the evidence that we have right now, one statement from her, a statement from Mark Judge, a statement from Judge Kavanaugh, these are in conflict. The guys say it didn't happen. She says it did. There's a possibility that Judge Kavanaugh is absolutely innocent. And if we're going to be moving forward with confirmation hearings, regardless whether it's Democrats or Republicans in charge, whoever's up for nominations, I would hope that one accusation, if someone is not willing to come forward, that one accusation for a witness that won't come forward would not be enough to derail somebody's career. She should come forward. She should be treated with respect. She should tell her side of the story. They can question Judge Kavanaugh again, and the Senate can make a judgment. That's fair.
Maya's trying to jump in here.
So, Sarah, where I absolutely agree with you is that there should be a fair process, and that all parties to the process should get the full fairness of a neutral investigation. The problem with this is it's a setup. The reason Dr. Ford has already said that she wanted to come before the committee would. The issue isn't her willingness. The issue is the fact that it's a setup, and by the virtue of not providing a neutral, which is what the FBI would do, a politically neutral investigation to determine whether or not there are additional facts that would shed light.
Or witnesses.
And well, that's part of the fact pattern, right? Is witnesses, is essentially to say, we're going to say that we're giving you an opportunity, but we're actually setting you up. And all that we're setting you up for is our ability to have plausible deniability about whether we were just trying to ram through our political nomination rather than giving full, fair hearing to whether or not something awful happened here.
And Jason, it does feel like the rush is the other story here. That there seems to be this urgency that it has to be done ASAP, and which is unusual because they set the deadline. It doesn't have to be Wednesday. What do you make of the speed with which Republicans are trying to do this?
So my thoughts about this, Joy, they've really evolved throughout the week. I mean, we've seen this rush all along, right? And the rush is because of the Russians. They basically want Kavanaugh on the court in case this investigation goes further, and they want someone who will say the president can pardon himself. That's where this rush really comes from. But we've seen it all along where they had the documents, and now they don't want to do this, now they don't want to do that. The problem that the Republicans face is this. The longer they wait to actually vote and determine as to whether or not Kavanaugh can be confirmed, the closer it becomes an impact on Senate races that are happening across the country. That is what they're so terrified of. That's why they want to rush this through. But the problem is this. The longer they wait and the more of these conflicts they go through, the more people end up paying attention. I also think this, quiet as kept. It doesn't matter that Mitch McConnell yesterday said, we've got the votes. I don't think they've got the votes. At the end of the day, look, the Republicans have the lead in the Senate right now. They could have a vote next Thursday. The only reason they're even having these delays is because they're worried about Jeff Flake, they're worried about Murkowski, they're worried about Corker. They don't have the votes, and they're hoping if they can take this woman down publicly and make her look foolish or make her look less credible, it will give cover for Republicans to actually vote for her. So that's the danger. And honestly, if this doesn't end up being done by the 1st of October, I think he's going to drop out. I think you're going to have people ask him to drop out, and they won't even have the vote because pushing him through this late will be dangerous.
Well, interesting. And Frank Schaefer, let me come back to you.
She's got to show up, though.
We'll see what happens. And she has not, by the way, we should just factor, she has not said she won't, right? They're just trying to negotiate when she can get there. But really, I'm going to come back to you in a second, Charlie, but I want to go to Frank on this really quickly because that is the other issue, right? That if, for instance, Republicans were to succeed and just jam him onto the court and whatever, to deal with the optics, get him onto the court, and then more information came out, just the way that David described happened with Clarence Thomas, where 3 more women, it turned out, were backing up the story. And now, when people think about Clarence Thomas, at least if you're not a hardcore Republican, there's an asterisk on him that stays on him. It doesn't go away. No one's forgotten about that testimony of Anita Hill. What happens with evangelicals if now you have two out of 9 members of the Supreme Court, 2 out of the 5 men, have this kind of cloud over them, and they're both conservative, they're both Republicans? Does the base feel uncomfortable with that?
Yeah, there are evangelical white women voters who voted for Trump who will not vote for a Democrat under any circumstances except one, when they really get the idea that they are being abused wholesale as women. And you have to understand something. The Republican Party is starting to look like the party of misogyny, abuse, fondling, groping. That's who the president is. And we know that. And so this illness of denying all your morality, the so-called family values base that the evangelicals said they represented, and wholesale defending people like Kavanaugh, Roy Moore, Donald Trump himself, is going to peel people away. And I say again, that's why someone like myself is hopeful going on the road with Vote Common Good, that we can appeal to this and just say, hey, listen, there has to be somebody left who still actually is trying to follow Jesus and not Donald Trump. There has to be someone left in this Christian group who is interested in the integrity and the morality and the character of these individuals. And if we can't appeal to that, then it's not just America that's in trouble. Any vestige of so-called evangelical Christian witness is going to be finished. That's what's on the line. Hi, this is Frank Schaeffer, and I'm on my way back home from having just been in the studio doing an MSNBC show on the Kavanaugh hearings. But, you know, it occurred to me, and I could do this in a tweet or something because it's a short thought, that this year, as we go into the midterms in November, and beyond that, toward re-electing or unelecting Donald Trump next time around, that the party of misogyny and groping and molestation that the Republicans have become have put American women, even Republican women, even white Republican right-wing evangelical women, in a position of having to choose something that is the moral equivalent of asking a Jew in mid-1930s Germany to vote for the Nazi Party. You know, I don't think it's an equivalent when it comes to saying that the Republicans are like Nazis or that Donald Trump is like Hitler, but it is so clear that the Republican Party does not represent the interests of women of any color or economic strata in this country on so many fronts. The tolerance of a self-admitted molester and assaulter as president, backing people like Roy Moore, who attacked young women and then denied it, and now the Kavanaugh hearings, where you've got a situation that is just absolutely a travesty. All the rest of this put together, not to mention the policy issues of denying health care to people, which is a women's concern and a family concern, along with men, of course, or the whole idea of choice or women's rights or reproductive rights, allowing the idea of religious freedom to be interpreted as women being denied the right to have health insurance that covers contraceptions, on and on and on. The insensitivity of the Senate and Congress toward women. The Republicans are now the party of misogyny, groping, and all the rest of it. I say again, to be a woman in 2018 voting for a Republican is the equivalent of asking a Jew to vote for the Nazis in the 1930s. This is Frank Schaeffer.